Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwantner and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Nick Kane, who's managing partner of Janek Performance Group. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, Gerhard.
Every company has sales performance problems. What is the first step for identifying those problems?
Definitely a problem we hear all the time, as you can imagine. As organizations are much more sort of accountable for certain sales targets, we see this a lot in the technology space and other verticals that we work in where quarterly earnings and figures are so critical to the business. We get that question all the time. How do we fix sales performance problems? And really, we try to look at that in a very holistic way. Sometimes organizations and sales executives are so caught up in the day-to-day operation that they tend to overly focus on one area or another and not take a step back to get a sense of what's really happening within the sales organization. So when we look to identify the root cause and we get that question from our customers, we try to keep it very focused and keep those sort of areas into three core buckets, right? Strategy, process, and people. Those are the three areas that we assess to really get a sense of what's going on within the sales organization and what needs to be fixed.
How do you know you have a strategy deficiency?
We keep strategy very simple. That's one of those words that to me can mean so many things to so many different people. Mm-hmm. You look at the term strategy, it could be endless. So we keep strategy very very simple and poignant. We focus on a few core things, right? The first thing we look at is the value proposition. Okay? Does the organization have a clearly defined value proposition, and can the sales organization articulate that value proposition to their clients? I think that's the first step. Do you know your differentiators? Do you know what separates you? And do you know what makes you better than the competition? If you can't answer those questions, you got to start there. All right, once that's defined, I think the next step is to identify who is the customer that you want to be working with. Who do you want to go after? And who is the customer that's going to value your value proposition? Because at the end of the day, that old sort of shotgun approach of sending out marketing and messaging to a variety of customers, it just doesn't work in today's day and age. Right. Exactly, yeah. So I think it's really important first to identify what is the value proposition, right? And who is the customer that is most likely to buy from you. Once you determine that, I think you can proceed from there.
Right. You mentioned also process and people. Which one is more difficult?
I think they're both challenging in different ways. I would say process can be challenging because it really comes down to how do you execute, right? What are you doing? Once you've defined that strategy, how do you go to market best and ensure that you're reaching the customers that you want to reach? So when we're looking at processes within an organization, there's a few things that we're looking at. One is the sales structure. Right? What is the structure of the organization? Do you have the right talent in the right places? I think that's a key, right? Is the structure of the sales organization. Right. We also want to look at the end-to-end sales process, right? And a lot of organizations overlook the importance of aligning that process with the way customers buy, with the buyer journey, right? Because organizations are so focused on what resources do I need to use? How does the end-to-end sales process look from our perspective? But one of the things we really try to clue in on is how well does that align with the way that prospective buyer wants to buy?
Right, and then also aligning the sales process with the marketing process.
Yeah, with marketing as well. Absolutely. Yeah. So what leads are you generating, and how are you selling to those customers?
So can we drill down a little bit on the people? I think there are two issues. One is the skills deficiencies that you're going to see, and the other one is the motivation gaps.
You hit it right on, no question. So I think skills are important, motivation is important, and again, goes back to the structure as well. So once you have the processes defined, you know how you're going to market, do you have the right talent in the right places?
Right.
I think that's the first question that needs to be answered. Once you determine that, do they have the skills to execute that strategy most effectively, right? Based on how specialized that role is, et cetera, the skills have to be there. And then lastly, do you have a management team? Do you have folks that are really driving performance, that are motivating the employees? Do you have the right compensation plan in place that is aligned with your desired behaviors? All of those things need to be considered on the people side to really drive performance.
Right. So let me give you a practical example, and I want you to coach me. I have a sales rep that did very well for 2 quarters and was just hired. And he exceeded quota 2 quarters. And now he wants to come back and say, I need a promotion.
Okay.
How do you handle that?
That's a great question. I think you really need to first be realistic with the need for the promotion. right? I think you need to look at it from an organizational perspective. You can't always make a top performer happy just because they ask for something, right? So I think the first step is, do you need it? And then the second step is to do a true assessment of, does that person have the skill set, or do they have the capabilities of moving into that role effectively, right? And then at that point, I think you make an educated decision, and you work with that employee to either get them promoted and give them the support they need, or let them continue to sell for a while until they're ready for that promotion.
Thank you, Nick. For anybody who'd like to get more information, go to janek.com.